Hey everybody, this is Devin Francis, also known as Leonard Meltzner.
Hey, and I'm the other one.
And you're watching the Adventures in Odyssey Oddcast, having just come to you from a hot air balloon that I was in. And the video is very short because...
And that I wasn't in, because Devin doesn't let me go outside anymore.
And because we live 11 hours apart from each other. The video cut a little short because after having my phone for 2 years, it was while I was going up in the balloon that my phone suddenly ran out of memory for the first time. So it just cut out there. I mean, looking at stuff I put on my phone lately, there are much worse places it could have run out of space, such as very shortly before filming-wise, when I was filming Victoria's Grad. So,
Yeah, if you ran out there, that would not be good.
That would have been very bad. So
that would have been upsetting.
It was relatively all right where it ran out, but still, yeah. Hot air balloon, got to go up in that for the city celebration days thingy here. Anyways, on to the actual episode. Before we start, we have a couple news items to cover. First off, the last couple weeks, the AIOO team has recorded 6 episodes. So according to Phil Lawler, the 6 episode titles, he gave us all 6 of them very graciously on the Adventures in Odyssey trivia page.
This is for the OAC, isn't it?
The first one is for album 60, and it's called Untech the Halls. Tech as in T-E. Sorry.
That was an interesting noise.
Sorry, that's my phone vibrating.
Aram, is that you?
Yes. So Untech the Halls, as in technology, and like a poem on the Christmas Carol.
A Christmas technology episode? We've never had 2 of those before. Oh,
Untech the Halls is from album 60, and all of the other 5 are from the OAC for 2016, and they are called The Official Journal of John Avery Whittaker. And apparently we're going to meet Whit's grandfather, Jackson. Which side of the family that's on, I don't know. The Good Soil, Things Not Seen, and The Boat People, Parts 1 and 2.
The dumbest title ever.
I think that was what we said about Drake the Cosmic Copper.
Oh, that means it's going to be a really good episode then.
So those other 5 will be in the OAC 2016, and I'll put those titles down in the description just as a list, just so you can see them written out.
My prediction for Good Soil, it's Tom Riley comes back, and then he takes over the world in his absence. He's gained power in his absence. He's joined forces with Bart Rathbone, and they're going to plant light bulb trees, and the electrical cords go down because they're the roots, and then they just destroy all plant life, so then they have the only plants, so then all the people of the world need to come to them for food and resources, so then they rule the world.
Okay, save it for the album predictions episode, Victoria. Jumbo Fort pointed out yesterday on Tumblr that it's been 7 years now since Tom was last on AIOO. I don't think 7 years exactly. I think she was just looking stuff up. But it's wow. Doesn't seem like it's been that long. It's a long time, 7 years.
5, 6, yeah, it's been 7 years.
Also, on that same note for the recording sessions, the Adventures in Odyssey Facebook page, the official one, posted a picture from the recording session for Untech the Halls, which would appear to show that Gunnar Sizemore has left the show, and Justin Felbinger will be voicing Matthew Parker now, being the 3rd actor to take over that role. I told you about this.
I was thinking of a different person when you said that name. I thought you were talking about someone else.
No.
So, wow. So
Gunnar Sizemore
Matthew really is the new Wit. That's what you're telling me.
Yes.
We're on Matthew's 3rd voice actor. And
yes.
Why can't they just bring Zach back? Do we know why Gunnar Sizemore left?
No, it's just in the picture. It's here's the Parker family recording Untech the Halls, and then it's this person is this person, this person is this person, and it says Justin Felbinger as Matthew Parker.
Maybe Matthew was turned into a robot, and
Perhaps.
The robot is played by that guy.
That is probably the most likely theory about what's going on here. And final news item. the August OAC newsletter came out today. They will soon be releasing another 13 Aventuras and Odyssey episodes. And it sounds like this second album will closely mimic album 2, unsurprisingly, in terms of the episodes it contains. So if you speak Spanish or you're wanting to learn Spanish, you can go hit that up for more funds with Club del Castillo.
Have you been listening to them or watching them?
I have not.
I haven't either. I don't really want to, honestly.
I feel like I should, but I don't speak a lick of Spanish. And I think that in a full-fledged radio production, my being fluent in French will not be enough to help me understand the Spanish. I don't feel like the Latin connection will be enough.
I will listen to this episode, if they get that far. I want to listen to the Cross Cortez for the Spanish part with Eugene. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know how they'll do that.
I don't either.
Or things like Mission for Jimmy.
Trying to do the episode where they go from Japan to Australia in the English dub.
I mean, surely other animes have had to cover that same problem before.
Oh, they have, but they've just done it in ways that work. I don't think Free will anything in the past. I want them to pull a Free and be like, oh, sorry, we don't speak Spanish. We only speak American Spanish.
Yeah, we only speak dude bro Spanish.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's that. I feel like if it was like the same characters and the same line for line stuff, I think it would be interesting to hear and listen, see if I could figure out what was going on just from my ridiculous knowledge of the original episodes. But I feel
like word for word translation, it's really easy to figure out what's going on. That's what I do in Kingdom Hearts.
Yeah, but I don't think that's the case here, considering that like all the character names have changed, and like I said, Wits End is Club del Castillo and stuff. So I figure like there's probably other stuff that's changed to match culturally. The theme song for it, like the opening theme, is interesting. I like the way they did the instrumentation to make it sound like the animated series theme, but with a more culturally Mexican twist to it.
So does that mean they had a live orchestra do the music?
Oh, I don't know. I highly, highly doubt it. It's just that's what it sounded like.
We need more live orchestra music in Odyssey, but anyway, let's
That does cost a lot of money. Anyways, so there's that. Also in the newsletter, it said that the OAC will soon be introducing continuous play for albums on there, so that when you are listening to an album, you click on one track, when it finishes, it'll run to the next track instead of stopping after each one, which is what it does now.
I don't know, part of me is like, that's good, but the other part's like, when I'm listening to episodes where I can't hear the next part yet, that's going to be really bad.
Yeah, well, yeah, I mean. Anyway, so let's get to the actual review now that we're longer in than we should be. Okay, so, first review. We haven't even said what we're reviewing today yet. Victoria, what are we talking about?
That's a good question. Which one are we doing first?
I said we're reviewing. It's a review episode first.
No, I mean, which episode are we reviewing first?
Well, what have we done in literally every other review we've ever done before?
First episode is going to be BTV Grace. Right?
Not Grace.
Oh, right.
Grace is the band episode from like...
BTV Truth.
Yes.
BTV Truth.
BTV to tell the truth.
Yeah, to tell the truth. And then... A lesson from Mike.
Yes. Very good.
Thank you.
Yeah, BTV to tell the truth, and then a lesson from Mike. Okay, so let's dive right into it. Episode 769, BTV to tell the truth, written by Phil Lawler. Tell me about it, Victoria. Sum it up.
So, in this episode, Bernard isn't there. That sucks. That made me upset. I'll talk more about that later. So we have the kind of main subplot with the people running the episode is Connie got a parking ticket and Eugene's trying to get her out of it in a court situation, and Emily's dad is the judge. And then we have lots of subplots, like we have one with like Mr. Truth and Mr. Falsehood. Yeah. And then we have another...
But the main one is...
Yeah, the main one going throughout the episode is Harlow Doyle, isn't it?
Yeah.
Harlequin Doyle... Doylekin? Doylicus? who's finding out about Jesus and the truth that he had, which affected people and stuff back in biblical days.
Yes.
And then other stuff, like in every BTV episode, there's lots of stuff going on.
Oh, well, not the same stuff, and we'll get to that later. So, we should start off by addressing the elephant in the room, which is not, in this case, the elephant in the room.
Yeah, the elephant in the room isn't there. I wish it was.
The elephant in the room is not the elephant in the room. Rather, it is BTV Saint Bernard. So, Bernard Walton, as we all know, like many other characters, he faded away during the second hiatus without any explanation, as you do on this show. And it was in January of 2014, last year, that Dave Madden, the actor, passed away.
It hadn't been that long ago. I still remember that day very vividly.
Yeah, it was January 16th, I think, because that's why we did that was our review for January last year, because of that. It was January 16th, I think. It was the day I got Tumblr, I believe. It's one of the first posts that I made was about that. So that took away any remaining hope that Bernard would come back to the show. So when we all found out that this OAC season was going to have a BTV episode, many people were quite confused, ourselves included, because after all, the B in BTV stands for Bernard, although Phil Lawler has since said that implicitly the writers have always believed that it stands for both Bernard and Bible. And of course, Bernard has always been the host of the show, and the episodes have always been tied together by a central story that all the other skits revolve around, which is always called A Story by Bernard. Or Bernard's Story, either way. Which is always the mainest skit in every BTV episode. So when I heard that this episode was happening, I figured that there were three possibilities. That this would be a pre-taped episode from before Dave passed away that hadn't been released yet. They'd been saving it until now, which would be like the ultimate dream. That they would acknowledge Bernard's absence on the show in some way, or that he would be gone without any mention or reference whatsoever. And I was sad to hear that it was going to be the third option, although, it was pretty obvious that that was what it was going to be. The chances of the other two were quite slim. So
So I was not very happy when I listened to the episode. What about you?
I already knew he wasn't going to be in it, so I'd kind of, processed that long ago.
Yeah, I know, but I was just hoping I was wrong.
Yeah, well, I had already been told he wasn't in it, so I already knew for sure. I would have held out...
Yeah, but you were spoiled.
Exactly, I would have held out hope against hope if I didn't already know for a fact that he wasn't in it.
Sadness.
On a lesser note, I find the title of the episode itself really odd, about why it's BTV to tell the truth instead of simply BTV truth. Because, every other episode has had a simpler title, whether it's BTV envy, compassion, temptation, forgiveness, thanks, unity.
Behind the scenes.
Etc. Yeah, unity was the actual episode, in canon. The most complex one that we know about was Redeeming the Season, but that's not really a title you could simplify much, because it wasn't about redemption in general or the Christmas season in general. You needed that full title, but you could, there's nothing in To Tell the Truth that you couldn't get out of just truth. And in Nova Rising, it is made quite clear that the episodes of BTV all have similar names in universe, as well as, for us as listeners, because Bernard and the Novacom writers talk about potential episodes like BTV Pollution and stuff like that, and it's still like one-word titles. Even though Bernard didn't come back, we did have a super surprising cameo, which was Earl Bowen, multiple times in the episode. He had multiple roles in the episode for different things, and this is the first time...
Him melting chocolate over your ears, Devin.
This is the first time he's been on the show since album 50. So, yeah, I thought it was crazy. Like, the actor and Edwin Blackard, which would, since this is BTV, presumably this is Edwin. I wrote Regis in my notes.
Wow, that's a big difference. Devin's bringing Blackard back. You monster.
This is Edwin voicing these characters, in universe. So it's really weird because we were holding out hopes for Bernard, but we got a different actor appearing who hasn't appeared since album 50 cameo. So, yeah, that's kind of funny that happened when in an episode when everyone was waiting for Bernard to appear in some way, hopefully. Because, that's what happened to Tom in album 50. Walker Emerson already passed, but Tom had that little scene in album 50 about cleaning the gutters and stuff, because they'd recorded that. I think it was for A New Era, the original version, where Eugene and Katrina were going to leave Odyssey. That was a scene from that, and it never got used. And then they
just cut together
fitted into album 50.
He said.
Sorry?
I thought those were clips cut together from past things he said.
No, he'd never talked about gutters before. Those were original lines.
Okay.
That's why it was like this whole thing, because those weren't cut together. Those were lines that had never been used in anything else before. But the episode wasn't released until after he passed, of course. So I'm assuming that soft-spoken narrator for the Mr. Truth, Mr. Falsehood thing is supposed to be Mr. Rogers. Where he's like, "Come on, neighbors, come around and I'll tell you a story."
Sounded... Okay, when I heard that, I was... Oh, what was the last episode of BTV that came out?
BTV Live.
No, the one before that.
Redeeming the Season.
No, Temptation.
Oh, yes.
So in BTV Temptation, that was like the same guy. He was just like, "Gather around for story time with Connie." I don't know if it was the same guy, but he sounded so much like him.
No, that was a much younger tone guy. That sounded like a guy in his 20s. This was a much older guy, and that's why I think he was supposed to be Mr. Rogers. It's funny, when I first heard him, I thought of Bob Ross. And I'm like, that doesn't really make any sense.
Miles, is that you?
So yeah, I'm assuming you're supposed to be Mr. Rogers then. And the Moonlight Sonata is playing in the background of the restaurant that they eat in. Since I have the compulsion to point out.
The plot with Eugene and Connie, but I didn't like it until the end of it.
I'll get to that, because it didn't make any sense at the end. It didn't
either. But like when it first started, and it was like Connie's on trial and Eugene is the court guy, I'm like, oh, Eugene being involved in a court trial. That's never happened before. This is like the 10th time.
There's a lot of...
Like we have the one with Rodney and Isaac, and then we have the one like faster than a speeding bullet, and then we have Tom versus
the All-Star Witness.
Ashley, and then we have like
Blind Justice.
What?
Blind Justice, yeah. Lots and lots of others.
Yeah, Blind Justice. Like, Eugene is the most laud... Like, I bet Eugene spends more time in the courthouse than the actual judges spend time in the courthouse. Like, it is ridiculous.
From the Road Trip saga.
What?
Third Degree from the Road Trip saga.
Like, there are so many Eugene episodes where he's in court.
Yes. Yeah, I'll get...
And yet, I don't think he's ever been on trial.
I'll get to that.
It's always been other people.
That's a good point.
Have you ever realized that?
That's a good point.
It's always like Eugene or... No, it's always like Connie or Bernard that are on trial.
Yes.
And, yeah.
I mean, in fairness, at least he wasn't in Broken Window.
That's what I was about to say. I was going to say, I think the only one he's not in is Broken Window.
Okay, so looking at the episode overall at this point, I think the episode did quite a good job at looking at many different aspects of what the truth is, what it means, how it's accomplished, how it's not accomplished. I suppose, though, that's what most BTV episodes do with their topics. Like Bernard, usually his narration through the episode guides us through, like, what is this thing? Why is it important? How do we do it? And how does it relate to our relationship with God?
Yeah, but we didn't get that this time, so it didn't leave as much as an impact.
Sorry, what did you say?
We didn't get that this time, though, so it didn't leave as much as an impact.
Well, Whit narrated through the entire episode.
Yeah, I guess. I really like the thing with, like, Mr. Truth and Mr. Falsehood, and when it was starting, I was like, oh, man, this is going to be really, really good, because I thought it was going to be, like, the narrative going through it, like, how we have, like, the storybook land and stuff, and, like, compassion. and then all that stuff. So I thought I was going to go through it, and it was like, it did the first scene like at the restaurant, and it's like as time went on, this kept on happening, and they kept on like butting heads against each other. I'm like, yeah, keep on telling the story. I really like it. And then it just like, and then I was like, what was that? And then it didn't go back to the story at all. Well, and I'm like, you had such potential with that. And then they just didn't do anything.
I think it was clear that wasn't going to be like the main storyline, because it didn't even start till like over halfway through the episode, I think.
I was hopeful. I enjoyed it more than the Harlow Doyle thing. Like, I zoned out every time Harlow came on screen. It was just not interesting.
It was definitely like it, even though it took the place in terms of the episode structure, it took the place of the story by Bernard. It was not a story by Bernard. Like, it had Sorry?
You know what it was like? It was like, even though it was funny, it's like in the live shows when we have a subplot with Harlow, it doesn't do anything. Like, it's just kind of there. Like, when he has, like, in New Year's Eve Live, even though I really, really love that episode, and his subplot is, like, really funny in it, he doesn't really, like...
Yeah, well, this did definitely serve a purpose. It served the most important purpose, which is...
I know, but it just wasn't as interesting.
Well, no, that's what I'm saying. Even though, in terms of the structure of a BTV episode, because they do have a definite structure to them, it filled the gap of where a story by Bernard would go, but it was not Bernard's story. The style of the storytelling was very distinctly different than a Bernard story would be, which I think is why it felt so off primarily. I mean, this is the first BTV episode that we've reviewed, so it's the first time I think we've really talked in depth about like the way that they're put together or the way that the themes are looked at as you go throughout the episode.
I just want to say, because we've never reviewed one, I just realized that now, like you said, I love BTV episodes. BTV episodes are some of my favorites, and I marathon them all regularly.
Yeah, like I was just saying, the great thing about BTV episodes is that it explores a theme in so many different aspects, and it goes through it explicitly. Like I said, Bernard's narration will lead us through a whole bunch of different ways to look at what this topic is and why we should do it, how we should do it, how it relates to our relationship with God, what the consequences are of not doing it, and things like that, through a bunch of regular segments and formatting and stuff like that.
Oh, so, BTV Obedience, our first BTV.
The one that we memorized.
Yeah.
That means they outnumber us 6.43 to 1. Anyways.
And your point is?
Wow, look at that turbo-powered chariot. Anyways.
Thank you! Aw, that was nice of you, Elijah, to give him a gift.
Yes, it's dirt cheap, too. Anyways. I found it a little odd that they used blindfolded men for the elephant story instead of the classic blind men, because that's like the name of the story or parable or anecdote, whatever you want to call it. I guess that they went with blindfolds instead so that they could interject a little more humor about them like crashing into things and stuff like that, coming in and out of the room, because you wouldn't be able to do that with blind people because they would be a lot more competent than that.
What was the guy's name?
What guy? Zerubbabel?
Yeah, Zerubbabel. I love that name. When I first heard it, I was singing, I'm like, oh, that's such a cool name. And then they kept on making fun of it. I'm like, don't you dare. You're just jealous. You don't have a name that's that great.
Mephibosheth. Who? Mephibosheth. Oh.
The Zerubbabel thing got kind of old after a while.
Yeah.
If they said it as a different word, like an actual word, it probably would have been funnier, but...
Yeah, instead of the gibberish thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm almost there. The other thing about the elephant in the room is I laughed at... it was with... No, actually, no, it was that sketch, the Zerubbabel sketch when the king is talking, and this unnamed pre-Darius king of Babylon in the sketch. Maybe it's supposed to be Nebuchadnezzar, I don't know.
I thought they did say his name was Darius, and I was so confused.
No, it was a king before Darius.
He had the same VA as Darius. It was confusing.
He had the Dudley the pig voice from I Want My BTV.
Oh, yeah.
So I was really curious about whether that was an intentional callback to the first BTV episode or not.
Let's just say it is, so I feel better.
Yeah. I laughed at when he asked like the first guy the question, and he's like, "Okay, unnamed first man."
Yeah, and then also like when he's like, "What's the strongest thing in the world?" He's like, "It's you, sire." And he's like, "Okay, that's a little kiss-uppy, but okay."
I thought it was kind of funny. You'd think that if you were going to make an argument that booze is the strongest thing that there is, that you would go with a stronger iteration of it than wine. Like, I know that wine has a higher alcohol volume content than beer, and I'm pretty sure they didn't have like moonshine and tequila and rum and vodka and stuff like that like we do now, but surely there must have been stronger liquor than wine in those days.
I
don't know. Maybe their wine was much more alcoholic than ours is now. Okay, courtroom sketch. Like I was saying earlier, this really annoys me. I expect better from Simon, but I guess he was just tired with everything. So
also,
Eugene's
it didn't
defense.
Sound like the old VA they had for him. It sounded like a new one.
Eugene's defense. He said that the machines froze for 15 minutes from 5:50 until 6:05, which means they worked correctly up until 5:50, and then they spent 15 minutes frozen on 5:50, and then they just jumped straight to 6:05, right? And then they kept working correctly on from there. So Connie got a ticket, and the thing said 5:50 on it. While it's possible that Connie got a ticket at 6:05 and the machine was still stuck at 5:50, it's also possible that
Others did.
Sorry?
Others did too?
No, it's also possible that she was ticketed at 5:55 and the machine was stuck at 5:50, or 6 o'clock and the machine was stuck at 5:50. Just because the machine was stuck for a total of 15 minutes doesn't mean that Connie got the ticket at the end of those 15 minutes. She could have gotten that ticket anywhere in that 15-minute range at any individual moment. And if you look at the ratio, 5:50 to 6:05, that means there's a 2/3 chance that she got that ticket before 6 o'clock, which would make it valid. There's a 67% chance that she should have actually gotten that ticket, right? Because just because it was frozen until 6:05, it said 5:50 at 6:05, but it also said 5:50 at 6 o'clock, and it said 5:50 at 5:57, and it said 5:50 at 5:52, and it could have been any of those times that she got a ticket.
Okay.
Additionally,
she was ticketed there because she was too early, right?
Yes.
Okay, the thing about this, thing that I was laughing to myself about, is if I was like defending her, I would say, like, Your Honor, I'm getting called John Avery Whittaker to the stand, and like every other person in Odyssey alive, and I'd be like, does Connie ever arrive early for anything? And they'd be like, no! And then she'd be like, thank you! And then she'd just walk out, and they'd be like, you're right! You're always late! And then she would leave.
That's perfect.
Yeah, I thought of that when I was listening to it last night. I'm like, Connie was early. The one time Connie's early, she gets in trouble for being early. So she should just be late all the time like she is.
No, there's 2 times she's been early. There was this.
Yeah, when she was at Hal's Diner.
Exactly. Hal's Diner, Whit doesn't show up, and the other times now she gets a parking ticket.
So every single time she's early, terrible things happen, so that she probably noticed the pattern, so that's why she's always late.
I'm so glad that you and I both, jumped to between you and me. Immediately we knew that's what we were talking about.
I was thinking about between you and me as I was forming my point the other day.
That's so funny. But yeah, and even on top...
You know I'm right. Yes, I'm right.
You're absolutely right. That's hilarious. I wish I'd thought of that.
But on top of what I said... say it too.
Already, there's a 2/3 chance that it was before 6 when that ticket was written up by the ticket righty thing that had the timestamp on it. Additionally, that is only when she got the ticket. That's not when she parked. So if you think about the fact that Connie had to park somewhere, leave the car, walk away from it, and then the officer comes and gives her a ticket, chances are that, the car had already been parked there for several minutes, before the ticket was issued. And if there's already a 65% chance that the ticket was issued before 6 o'clock, then there must be like, at least a 99% chance that Connie parked there before 6 o'clock. Like there's no, even if the ticket was given out at exactly 6:05, do you really think that Connie parked after 6, got out of the car, walked away, an officer stumbles across it, and then writes up a ticket all in 5 minutes?
Okay, are you done your point?
Yeah, so Connie should have definitely gotten a ticket.
Out.
Connie should have gotten a ticket.
It's been a long day. Eugene won't shut up. Emily's dad has been in this terrible courtroom for so long, he will do anything to make them leave.
That's why I said I don't blame Simon for it, because he probably would have willingly paid the ticket himself just to be allowed to leave the courtroom. Which does beg another question.
And Eugene's just like, okay, I'll see you on Tuesday when we do that other courtroom episode that I'm in. And he's just like, no.
It does beg another question. So presumably the Harlequin Doilicus story was supposed to be the replacement for the story by Bernard. Which makes me wonder then, was the ticket thing with Connie and Eugene supposed to have actually happened, or was it just a skit for the BTV episode?
I think it happened. What I think it was like was when we had BTV Forgiveness, and then we have the scene in like the junkyard and stuff at the beginning and end, and then like a couple points dispersed throughout it.
Well, yeah, but I mean, like this was...
So it's not like the main story, it's just kind of like the little bookends and then a couple splatters.
Yeah, I understand that, but the problem is, in those other episodes, the bookends are being done by the hosts, actively being in the act of hosting the episode. In this, it would be looking on at an actual courtroom proceeding where it just so happens that, it's spread out in this perfect amount of time and it's exposited in a way that just perfectly fits into the progression of the lessons about truth throughout the episode. And I'm pretty sure that you wouldn't have been allowed to film that and release it on TV. I'm pretty sure. I'm not entirely sure about that.
Okay, but hear me out.
So for that,
you can't fake that kind of anger and annoyance at Eugene that Simon had. That was live.
Are you sure he couldn't have just like channeled his inner like father of Barrett playing Verminoids?
No.
Because I'm pretty sure
there's a special level for annoyance at Eugene that one always reaches once.
Alternatively, are you sure that wasn't just, it was, they were supposed to be acting, but he was still that annoyed with Eugene in real life through the reading of the script?
This happened.
I believe that
Silence.
Whit convinced Simon to let them use his courtroom for this all, and that it was part of the episode. But I mean,
I don't think it was part of the episode. I think it actually happened.
So overall, I think it was a good episode. It wasn't mind-blowing or anything, but it did feel like a BTV episode pretty genuinely, except for Bernard's absence, which also changed the story by Bernard, which wasn't actually a story by Bernard in this case, either in fact or in structure. And also, there were no did you knows in this episode for some reason.
Oh, yeah.
I re-listened to the episode just to double check.
Never even thought of that.
Yeah.
It was so weird because it was like, you know what it was like? It was like Uncanny Valley.
Yeah, that's a good way to describe it.
It was like BTV, but it's not BTV because everything is...
Yeah. It's just so close, but it's not. It's a BTV Uncanny Valley.
And that's why I don't like this episode. I think that summarizes my thoughts.
That's a good description, yeah.
Like
so since I listened to it again to listen for, did you know I made a list of the sketches in the episode? So there's Whit's narration throughout, Eugene and Connie's courtroom scene, the Harlequin Doilicus storyline, which maybe we should say something about that since it was the main story thing. They kind of had a supercut of famous truth-related lines from media.
Okay, when they first started saying it, they went like, shh, and they started saying things. First one, I was like, you can't handle the truth. And that was like the last one. And I was just like, why wasn't that the first one?
There was great moments in history, which was George Washington and the cherry tree. There is the Mr. Rogers.
I didn't understand that one.
It was like half-truths. Because he was like, I didn't cut down the tree, which was, or I didn't cut
No,
down your tree.
I like didn't understand what was going on and stuff in it at all.
Apparently, the whole George Washington and the cherry tree is a very iconic story to Americans. So,
well, I know that, but like, why was it when he was like a little kid and stuff? That happened when he was an adult, didn't it?
no, I think that. I mean, I'm pretty sure it didn't actually happen at all. But the
Yeah, I don't
urban
think it did
legend
happen
of it
either.
is no. It was he was a little boy and chopped down his father's cherry tree.
Okay, why is that such an important story?
I have
never
no
understood.
idea. There are many questions I could ask about American folklore and culture of the same questionness, but so yeah, and then there was the Mr. Rogers ripoff, the Mr. Truth and Mr. Falsehood.
That one was
story.
my favorite.
Blind Men.
Did you like that one?
Yeah. Blind Men and the Elephant, and then Zerubbabel and the Strongest Thing. And then
I didn't understand the elephant one either.
I mean, it's a pretty famous story, right? It's like they're blind, so they each feel different parts of the elephant, and it's like it's hard to understand the truth if you can't see all of it.
Oh, okay. I get it.
Yeah.
I understand.
From our limited perspective, we take in the evidence we get, but just because we take in evidence and we have something that makes sense given the evidence we've collected about the world, that doesn't mean that it's true, because we don't know.
I feel like I need to listen to this episode a third time.
So documentary wise and such, we'll cover that, all that stuff, and then we'll do our final thoughts. So in the documentary, we're going long on time. In the documentary, we start out playing Two Truths and a Lie with Bob Smithhauser, Jonathan Crow, and some other guy named Paul, who works for Focus. Not Paul McCusker, different Paul. A guy who presumably works with the OAC in some capacity. And I learned from Bob's thing that he caught a 60-pound salmon while in Alaska while they did the Carry the Cure documentaries. Or, no, I guess it wasn't in for that video because he didn't go on that trip. He also happened to go to Alaska another time, and he caught a 60-pound salmon. Also, apparently, Orlando Bloom's dog once slept on his feet.
That's an odd fact.
Yes.
I didn't know Orlando Bloom had a dog.
And
it slept on his feet.
They interview some polygraph examiners to learn about how they work and stuff, and then they hook Bob up to one and ask him some questions, and they end with, will Penny and Wooten get married? And then after humming and hawing, Bob says, I refuse to answer that question on the grounds that it may incriminate me. And then it cuts away from the segment.
No, it doesn't. Those machines don't really work that accurately.
Well, I mean, it depends how detailed they are. If you can
if you can control your pulse and stuff while you're lying.
You can be trained or have natural talent to be able to get through them, but the average person, you can tweet it out pretty well. Plus, I mean, some of them only take your pulse and a couple things like that, but some of them, like this one, I think it measured like 16 different body metrics.
So it's like lie to me, but in a machine.
Yeah. Like it has camera stuff, like it looks at micro expressions, skin temperature, it measures how wide your pores are dilating on your hand and stuff like that, and all sorts of things. In addition to, pulse and blood pressure and other stuff like that.
Pore hand dilation?
Pore, like the pores in your skin.
So next time I'm lying, like, I have all those things covered, like I'm not showing any micro expressions, my pulse is handled, but someone's like, oh man, look at your pores. They're dilating. You must be lying.
Well, it's because the pores...
What does that even mean? Does that mean like sweating?
Yes. Yeah,
okay, why didn't you just say sweating?
Well, because it doesn't measure the sweat. It measures the pores opening up to release the sweat. So it has like a thing on your finger, and it measures it somehow because the pores have to open up to let the sweat out. And so if your pores dilate suddenly, it's because your body is trying to sweat because it's nervous.
Okay,
anyway,
that makes more sense.
Cuts away from that. And then, so finally there's a guy, and he talks about what truth is, and specifically about absolute truth and relativism. And then the video closes on some credits, since the first segment was a fake game show with the two truths and a lie thing, and they kind of carried that throughout the video. So it closes on credits, and then after all the names and credits for the video go through, it starts doing like fake credits, and then it starts including things like a list of high-protein foods, helpful words in German, a recipe for potato salad, song lyrics, and a whole bunch of other stuff like that. So it was funny.
When at the beginning of the episode, when it's like, how do we know what truth is? I'm just like, I don't know. Maybe it's like not like you made an entire album about truth or anything like that. So I'll never know.
Yeah.
Oh, wait.
Yeah. Definitely had flashbacks to the Truth Chronicles, especially because of my next point. Throughout the month of May, which this is the episode for, they released 62 pages of Captain Absolutely comics, 2 pages each day throughout May. So they started with the origin story from the Truth Be Told, and then they continue through things pretty loosely. There were a few vague arcs going throughout it, and he gained a prominent Human Torch style sidekick named Hannah, a teenage girl, and other.
What was I gonna? Is it like drawn by the same guy who did Drake?
I don't know.
Because it'd be cool if it had the same art style, because it could be like, that's Hooten's art style.
I don't know.
So it's all done by the same guy.
So other than that, it was mostly stories that lasted only those 2 pages for that day. So as in, like, story setup, villain comes in, does something wrong, gets captured or redeemed, and then story conclusion, all within, like, 2-page spread. So,
how is that even?
The stories were pretty rushed and shallow for the most part. Like, I'm talking
Have you read them?
Yeah, I read it all. Like, I'm talking like...
Can you send it to me later?
Or you could just go on the OAC and look it up yourself.
No, that would take minutes.
So lots of those. It's literally like, once they do something, villain does something bad, Captain absolutely like says a Bible verse at them, and they're like, oh, I should be good now, kind of thing.
So it's like Calvin and Hobbes comics, but like, if you took one comic strip and you pretended it was like an entire book.
It was pretty short, yeah. Every single page, as far as I noticed, had at least one verse reference in it. Not like the full verse, but it would be like, he'd say something that would be like an implicit reference to a verse, and then there'd be like a little note beside it in thin pencil, and it would like say the verse with an arrow pointing to it.
So it was like The Cure?
Yeah. But even in so far as the spiritual discussion, things obviously didn't get very in depth because it was so, like, the stories were so short. And like I said, there were a few vague arcs that kind of stretched through things, but it's still, you know, it was pretty just quickly going through things. There were lesser shout-outs to other Captain Absolutely adventures, like Lord Foulspleen, who appeared. Didn't look at all like what I would have expected. The Unifier was in there a couple times, and there was a poster with advertising the Roundhouse. And there was also a movie poster for Drake the Cosmic Copper. And
oh man, that would make a good movie. Part of me really wants more Drake episodes, but the other parts, like after the end of the episode, I feel like they wouldn't be as good. So, like, Captain Absolutely started off really good, but it's gotten, like, not as good with time. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. And Hannah used an Appleberry, and not just an Appleberry, but an Appleberry 5.3, which I realized as I was writing out was presumably in reference to album 53. So those were all the references I spotted in it. So overall, BTV To Tell the Truth. Final thoughts, Victoria? We're going so long on this.
Yeah, I don't know. Initially, the first time I listened to it, I just didn't like it. Now I know why, because like I said, it's a lot like Uncanny Valley. Although I will admit, upon second listening, it was a lot better. So I'm going to give it a low mark now, but I'll probably like it more as time goes on. Which I do.
That's fair.
That does happen to me for most episodes.
Yeah.
So I'm going to give it... I'd say it's a little bit below normal episode. So I'd say, like, I don't know, 2 out of 5.
And so for me, same thing like you said, Uncanny Valley is a very good way to describe it. It had, other than Did You Know, which I don't know why they omitted that. I'm sure you could come up with short facts about truth, and it's such a short segment.
Maybe they forgot.
Maybe. But that seems odd. They must have like a list of the segments regularly in BTV so they don't forget stuff like that, I would think.
Maybe they lost the list.
And the fact
that's the list that said like B stands for Bernard was like the number one thing, and they lost the list.
Yeah. Do.
Banana phone. Sorry.
Phenomena. And the story by Bernard, yeah, despite the fact that Bernard wasn't in it, which already, it's really hard to, like, I understand that, Dave Madden's not around, they can't do that, but the fact that they didn't even mention Bernard in any way, there was no acknowledgement, and I understand that that's the norm. When characters leave on this show, they don't normally get, any sort of in-canon send-off. But given that this was an episode of a TV show, which was literally named after Bernard, you would think that they would have to acknowledge that in some way. It would be like if Whit died, but they kept on calling it Whit's End, and people would ask, like, oh, why is it called Whit's End? And they're like, oh, because things are so crazy here. You're at your Whit's End.
Because we're all crazy.
And they completely erase the fact that it's named after Whit. Like, you can't. You need to acknowledge why Bernard's not in the episode, because he's been in every other episode ever created before, for the obvious reason.
It's
and
a
the
lot
fact
like,
that
it's like Hand Up if they never ever mentioned Hand Up again like they did.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
No, it's worse than that.
It is worse.
With the story by Bernard, obviously we can't have Bernard there, but the fact that they so drastically changed the structure of the story, like they took out the narration for one thing, which to me is always the most quintessential kind of tying together thing of what makes it a story by Bernard. They're always these kind of quaint little fairy tale type stories, whether it's Marty the shoemaker or it's the fairy tale land people trying to figure out, the big bad wolf and stuff like that. They're always heavily narrated for one thing, and there's also about like the style of music and the way that they conduct the storytelling and stuff that none of it was there whatsoever for the Harlequin Doilicus segment. It was extremely departed from a story by Bernard.
Not only are some of the segments gone and like Bernard's not in it, it's kind of like they took the heart out of BTV.
Yeah, it just feels like a kids' radio episode as a result.
I agree.
So, yeah. I mean, other than that, like I said, the way that they explored the theme of truth, they did cover it in a lot of good different ways and stuff like that. And truth, relative truth, half-truths, truth by omission, things like that. So, that was good. Threw in a little bit of the, Lewis trilemma with Harlow's sketch, although they expanded it from a trilemma to like a quinlemma or something like that. C.S. Lewis's famous argument of, a madman or a lunatic, a liar, or the Messiah. So that was good, but overall, yeah, there's a lot of things that detract on it, and more than just the fact that Bernard himself wasn't in it, because that wouldn't be entirely fair to mark it down tons for that. Overall, I'll give it 3.3. Yeah.
So,
next review, we are now talking about hello? Victoria?
What?
Oh, you started talking, then you cut off. Next, we are talking about a lesson from Mike. So let's cut to that right now. And we're back here for the second half of this episode, which is hopefully going to go really fast. Since we took a really long time on the first half, I guess
How much do you have to say about this episode?
You guys will know how fast it went because you can see the whole time bar down at the bottom. So, episode 412, A Lesson from Mike, written by Marshall Younger. What happens in this episode, Victoria?
So, in this episode, I almost said book. In this episode, a boy named Mike, who is 1 year younger than Julie, I think?
Yes.
1 year younger than Julie, and friend's name escapes me.
And it's Heather, right?
And Heather, I think.
Yes, it is.
Yeah. Okay, a boy named Mike, 1 year younger than Heather and Julie, dies. And then he used to have a crush on Julie, and Julie decides that she wants to find out more about him because she never really got to know him. So then she talks to his mom and a bunch of other people. Her friends all think she's going crazy because she wants to learn about him, and she finds out he didn't have any friends or anything. She also finds out that her and Mike had so many things in common and they would have been really good friends, but she never got the chance because she never tried to find out about him.
Okay,
So
it's about 60% longer than it needs to be, but
whatever. The episode ends with her trying to make new friends from people who are shy and stuff.
Yeah. Here's a summary of the summary. A kid named Mike dies and he didn't have any friends, so Julie tries to find out about him and is socially ostracized for it.
Well then.
Yes. Okay, so, lesson from Mike. Right off the bat, I would like to point out that someone really needs to do something about the train trestle at Miller's Ravine, because that place is too dangerous. Because it's the same trestle that Whit and Peter had to jump off of in A is for Attitude to avoid being hit by the train. It's also filled with litter, as evidenced by Courtney Vincent's cleanup project in With a Little Help from My Friends.
Yeah, they're lucky they didn't get hit by the train in that episode.
And they were down in the ravine itself. So, why hasn't anyone done anything about this place? Why can't they make it safer somehow? Also, more very good questions. Why does everyone in this episode think it's so weird for kids to like jazz?
Yeah, I know, right? When I listened to this when I was little, I was like, I don't understand. And now I'm listening to it again, and I'm like, I still don't understand.
Yeah.
Because I don't know anyone who doesn't like jazz, because jazz is awesome.
Exactly. Most high schools have jazz bands. Kids like jazz. Why is everyone so incredulous about this?
Like, everyone I know likes jazz more than they like normal music. Like other types.
Yeah, I don't know.
When it comes to like jazz band and versus concert band.
Okay, all right, kids, time to take it down a notch here. Get serious. Sit on my chair all backwards ways. One of the things that's really hard-hitting about this episode is how callous the other kids are about Mike's death. To me, it always feels like on the surface, it always feels kind of surreal to listen to the way that all of these kids, save for Julie, of course, try so hard to forget him immediately, and they find it so bizarre that Julie wants to go to the funeral or learn more about him. And, you know, they're just really cold about it. And to me, like, just listening to it without thinking about it, it always feels like it's this draconian stereotype that these kids are over the top heartless and harsh about this. But they aren't. If we're being honest with ourselves, we are like this way more than we want to admit. Whether it's someone in our lives or just outside of our lives, you know, celebrity or someone dying, or a natural disaster or social injustice, we don't usually want to spend any more time talking or thinking about it than we think is necessary to be polite. And we're willing to have a moment of silence for thousands of people who die in an earthquake overseas, or we might like someone's Facebook status speaking out against systematic racism in our justice system, or provide sympathy for the death of a friend. But beyond that, after we pay our moment of respect at the lowest possible echelon of effort or discomfort, how often do we try and just push it out of our minds so we can retreat back to the complacency of everything else going on with us? And we'll show our support with a hug or a click or maybe a few dollars donated at the grocery store to the food bank, but we don't want to spend any real time or effort or money getting invested in this issue. And I'm not trying to guilt trip anyone here, because we're all guilty of this in different ways and to different degrees. In a way, we have to be to some extent, because there's no way that one human can handle every issue and every tragedy in full force. But still, I found that when I listen to this episode, I always get this feeling that these kids, like, they're so cold and cruel in the way that they treat Mike and Julie. Like, it's unrealistic how mean they are about it. But when we really examine it, I think that we're all a lot more like them than we sometimes want to think.
I agree. I was actually thinking about that while I was at work today. So So, what? What?
Because of the mean customer?
No.
Or
I was just thinking about in general what I was planning on saying for the reviews.
I see.
So, I don't know about you, but I can't listen to this episode without thinking about what happened about 4 years ago. The guy who died, who went to our high school.
The guy who went missing, drowned in the river?
Yeah. So, just gonna give a little bit of background on that. You might be able to do it better than me.
I really don't remember it very well. Do we need to give background on it? Is it actually relevant to this review?
Kind of.
All right.
Kind of.
Go very fast.
So there was a guy 4 or 3 years ago who was gradding, and then he got drunk, and then he, don't know if it was a suicide or not, he drowned in the river.
No, he just went missing, and they looked for him for like a week, and then they found his body in the river.
Yeah, in our town. So I haven't listened to A Lesson for Mike, I don't think, since I did my marathon for Adventures in Odyssey, which I think my latest marathon was in grade 7. Maybe it was sooner than that. I can't remember. So this
just to be clear, you don't mean like marathoning through all the episodes really quick. You just mean last time you listened through everything in order.
Yeah, through everything in order. Was in grade 7, and I think this happened when I was in grade 8 or grade 9. So it's really weird listening to it because, like, I don't know, I felt kind of like that, like, I don't know about you, but, like, I didn't know anything about the guy. I knew people who knew him, and I was like, oh, it's sad that he died and stuff.
Yeah, but I'd never heard his name before.
Yeah, I hadn't either, and so, I don't know, I kind of feel like some of the kids in this episode in that aspect, but also, like, when I was little, I don't know, this episode didn't really hit me in any way, because, yeah, I was too young to really understand what was going on or anything. And listening to this, like, the other day, I don't know, once you're older, this one of the episodes that doesn't really make that much sense when you're younger. It makes sense on like, the thing that's like, oh, make friends with people who have trouble making friends who are socially awkward, because you don't want them to be alone or anything like that. And more things like that, like, more to a greater extent than I said. But, like, it kind of just takes you when you're older, and then it, like, gets on a real level with you, like, know what I mean?
I think I always got the fullness of the episode, to be fair.
Well, like, I was pretty young when I first heard it.
Yeah, really. So it would be more so for you.
So, yeah, more so for me and other listeners who were younger first listening to this. So, like, I experienced what you said before, like, when I was younger and I'd listened to it, I was like, man, these people are always being such, like, jerks to Julie because all she wants to do is find out about Mike. Like, that's not weird or anything. Like, she wants to find out about him. And then, like, listening to Heather's case when she was talking to that girl who's part of the pep rally, and she's like, he died and she didn't even acknowledge him, and then, like, now she wants to find out about him, and I'm like, thinking about it, I'm like, in certain ways that is kind of strange, but, like, in certain ways I'm not saying that she would, like, know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, there's certain parts about it that are kind of unexpected of normal behavior. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it.
I can see how,
but not like what the normal person would do. But overall, like, I'm like, I have no problem with what she's doing, but I can see where she's coming from. If your friends started acting like this, it might take you kind of off guard. So, but I don't understand why she, like, the pep rally person's like, oh, can she do this thing about Mike? While Julie's just like, oh yeah, she knows about Mike, just go. Instead, she went off on this whole tangent, but I kind of understand where she's coming from because she didn't really have anyone else to talk to, and she's trying to sort of sort out her feelings, but...
or lack thereof.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you think?
I agree. I concur.
Well, that was...
we basically said the same thing about my point, to be fair. I didn't think of that. I was thinking of, I believe when I was in, I don't know, grade 3 or something like that, back when I was at Kinnaird, there was some kid who died who went there while I was there. He, like, accidentally hung himself from a tire swing or something like that. And I remember having a moment of silence for that, but once again, I had no idea who it was. So I always connect that more with this episode than with the guy in grade 12.
Makes sense. Would I have been at Kinnaird when that happened?
I don't know. I can't remember what grade it was. It might have been. It might not have been. It would have been right around the borderline of that. Anyways, so back to the episode. On a much less heavy note, in fairness to Mike, I always also had trouble spelling definitely until I realized that finite is
When I listened to that episode, I'm like a bad speller in general already, but I'm getting better as time goes on. I thought about it. I'm like, I can't spell definitely. I'm pretty sure like I've never spelt that word right before thinking about it.
I always spelt it wrong until I realized that it's definite, like finite or infinite and stuff like that is the root of that, and I haven't spelt it wrong since. Anyways, does Julie sound like she was sick to anyone else in this episode? Because I've always thought that. She sounds very stuffed up, and in the scene with Mr. Jarvis, it actually sounds like her nose is sniffling. And I mean, they have made characters sick in episodes before to accommodate the actors being sick. That's what they did with Whit in Bad Company.
There have been multiple episodes where Julie and Heather go through the episode sounding sick or not sick, in my opinion.
Well,
like it's happened with both.
Think
of them.
about how many episodes they record on the same day, though. Those could be episodes that were recorded in the same session.
But yeah, she does sound stuffed up. I think it's like more like Alicia or something like that. And Heather sounds like really stuffed up on that in that one.
Yeah, that's true. She does.
That one always, I don't know. It always confused me why. And they're like, Alicia's so sick. I'm like, have you listened to Heather? She's obviously very sick. But
that's funny.
And then also the Chores No More. I'm pretty sure, like, she sounds really stuffed up in that one, not Heather.
Julie?
Yeah, Julie does in that one. It could just be me.
Maybe. I don't know.
But it was always those two. I never noticed it with anyone else. Like, there are certain episodes I'm like, something is wrong with your voice. But they did go through a lot of voice actors. I always wondered if it was like, you're going through voice actors, but then you're going back like they did with Aubrey. I'm like, either that or you have a very bad cold and you're recording episodes.
So Mike's mother acknowledges that the trestle wasn't stable. And I'm like, then how can trains go over it? If it's unstable enough, a kid's going to fall off of it. How can like a train go barreling over it without crashing? And I reiterate, if people realized it was dangerous, then why not do something? I realize that people aren't supposed to be on there at all, obviously, because it's a train trestle. But you'd think that Mrs. Fulton could have at least requested the city to put railings on the trestle. Like what?
You would think they would have put stupid railings on it after A's for attitude.
Exactly. Like what? Granted, if there were railings, it might have made it harder for Whit and Pete to jump off it. But still.
Yeah, but Pete also wouldn't have got on in the first place.
Well, I mean,
he wouldn't have had to jump off.
You can't put railings on the entrance, though, because a train has to go through there.
Stupid.
You're very quiet right now. I'm putting you up to half volume.
Turn me up, then.
So yeah, what could it hurt? Like the only possible downside I could think of putting railings on the side would that it might encourage more people to use it because they're like, oh, it's safer, there's railings, now I can walk on the trestle. But from A is for attitude, it sounds like most kids already walk across the train trestle to school already.
So like, did Mike fall off of it?
Yeah, he was sitting on the trestle drawing, and then he fell off into the ravine.
Is the, like, they never specified how big the drop is or anything?
No, but big enough to kill yourself.
I was always confused about what this looked like, because I always imagined, like, in my head, like, a train track, but, like, the kind that you'd see on a bridge or something like that.
Well, yeah, it's a train trestle, yeah.
And so then, like, is he walking
like in Aristocats or GTA 5.
And then it's just, like, a bunch of wooden railings holding it up, and then there's, like, a pit?
Yeah.
Why are people going across it?
Because it takes significantly longer to walk down and up through the trestle, remember? That's what Pete was complaining about in A is for Attitude. It takes him longer because he has to walk through the ravine instead of going...
Deal with it. You won't get hit by a stupid train. Would you rather get hit by a train or go down?
I'm not the one walking through it, Victoria. I mean, if you're just some dumb kid and, you know... you'd think,
stupid.
You know what time the trains are coming. You could see them in advance. It's like, it's fine. I can go across the trestle. People go across train trestles. That's the thing that happens. Anyways, I think that they should have done something to make it safer.
Okay.
Hopefully they did after this point, now that someone died from it.
I might get negative feedback for this, but in my opinion, from what it sounds like, the train trestle is more dangerous than the Nova boxes. Like, they should know to stay away from these things at this point. It is more dangerous than Mitch and Connie shippers. Like, they just don't go near it. Like, they should just know by now.
Okay,
what do you think?
Oh, we're going to get comments.
So that was a joke. That was a joke.
Like I pointed out last time, Julie puts the dots together while talking to Whit that Mike only went to the train trestle while he was feeling down or lonely, with the implication that maybe if he'd had more friends, then he wouldn't have been there and he wouldn't have fallen to his death. So 2 episodes ago, I was talking about this and how it allowed this episode to talk about suicide without making it really about suicide, because they caused Mike's death to happen in a way that resulted from the same causes that often drive young kids to suicide, not having any friends, feeling like you're completely alone and isolated, ostracized. So they could address it the same way, but they changed his agency in the matter so that, they could get away with it. Since Mike didn't actually pull the figurative trigger, they were able to put that in there since it wasn't actual suicide. So I've always thought that was interesting, especially since, like I said also recently, we have had characters, take their lives on the show, such as King Lawrence or Dr. Blackguard, or who was the recent one we were talking about? Oh, yeah, Lewis Scott.
Yeah.
But I think the difference is that those were all adults, and I think that's probably why they could get away with that, but they didn't do it with this, since Mike was presumably like an 11-year-old kid.
With Lewis Scott, there was they were all under really specific conditions though.
Yes, that is also
Lewis
true.
Scott, if he didn't undo his thing or cut the rope or whatever, both of them would have gone down, so they both would have died. With Blackguard, he's insane, and with King Lawrence, he's something else. I don't.
He's worse than Blackguard.
Yeah, he's more insane than Blackguard is.
So
he doesn't have that honey melting over your face vibe. He has I
think it was butter melting over your face, but
I know it was butter melting over your face. I said it wrong on purpose.
But yeah, that's true. But still, I think it's the fact that they were...
It's like Winnie the Pooh shooting himself in the head in front of a child. Scarring for life.
Goodbye, Kyle.
Oh my gosh! What's wrong with you?
Yeah, I still think it's the fact that they were adults and that Mike was a kid. What?
What? I was just agreeing with you.
Why'd you yell, oh my gosh?
I didn't.
Yeah, you did.
I did that 10 seconds ago.
Oh, I didn't hear it until just now.
Okay.
Did you say that in reaction to my Winnie the Pooh impression?
Yes.
Or lack thereof?
Yes.
Hello?
Yeah, I did.
Okay, that's what I thought. I was surprised you didn't say anything, didn't make any faces, and now I realize in retrospect it's because your camera was frozen.
Yeah, your camera was just frozen a second ago too.
Okay, so to come back to my earlier point about the kids being, cruel, but not actually that cruel, it's really reiterated in this later online, which I thought you were going to touch on earlier when you talked about that scene, but you didn't, where Heather goes, I think she feels sorry for him. And Michelle goes, well, I feel sorry for hungry people in Africa, but I don't miss parties over it.
Yeah, the party thing in this episode, I think they're trying to make these kids seem older than they actually are, or something like that. Because they make everything sound like it's older than it actually is. They make Mike sound like he's older and stuff, and that I don't know. You know what I mean? The parties, they're oh yeah, we go to parties all the time. And then when the guy gets, he throws up, it's not because he's drunk. It's, because he ate too much or something like that. But if the kids were older, it would have been because he was drunk and stuff.
I see what you mean, but I don't think that that's what they were intending.
They made it sound like parties, not like birthday parties or whatever.
I mean... It was a pool party. And they got like an inflatable volleyball net for the pool and stuff. I mean, not that I went to parties like that in high school, so it's not like I have a strong reference point for that. I don't know. Anyways, the line about...
Hello? You look like you had a Vietnam flashback for a second
The line
there. You're
about
like, not that I went to parties in high school. Anyway.
I was just having like a That's So Raven vision right there.
Yeah.
Back to the Africa line. I feel like that there drives like what I said earlier home 100%. It also reminds me very much of Whit and Robin's lines in The Second Coming, where Robin says that she's just waiting until midnight passes and hopes there's something good on TV, and Whit says that that's probably how most people really feel about The Second Coming deep down. Maybe think about that in the same ilk of like, people are like, oh, these kids are being so cold and mean about Mike's death and stuff, but deep down, in reality, they probably react the same way. Definitely, 100% best quote from this episode is the, he didn't deserve better because he was nice, he deserved it because he was a person.
Yeah, that's my favorite quote, too.
And my final line is... Or final point is the end of the episode, where we end with Julie walking up to a girl whose name is Mikey, and she's all alone without any friends. And it's Sorry?
I'll let you continue.
It's a little cheesy and cliche, but I don't know. I like it.
There were 2 points when I was re-listening to the episode the other day where I was like, wow, that's a big coincidence. The first one was like Heather making like a joke, or I don't know if you'd call it a joke, about the Hindenburg. And then she's like, Hindenburg Post-it sheets, of course, or whatever. And I'm just like, okay. And then the Mikey thing at the end, and I'm like, okay.
She didn't make a joke about the Hindenburg. She just noticed in the TV guide they were rerunning the movie. But yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, obviously, the Mikey thing was intended to be like a god thing.
I know.
But yes, you're
it's
correct.
Like in the Proud Family episode or whatever, or like in the one with the the Barclays, when they help like that family, and then it turns out the family were like angels or something, and then another family comes and it's like, we were waiting for you.
The one that is literally an episode out of Odyssey.
Yeah. Like, what came first?
Probably the Visitors.
What came first? The audio or the video?
It must have been the Visitors that came first. Proud Family totally ripped off AIO. Okay.
It's the same plot. It's the exact same plot.
It was exactly the same. I know. I remember seeing that, and I was like, okay. So
I think I saw that before I listened to the Visitors, though. So when I first listened to the Visitors, I was like, it's like that Proud Family episode.
So... Two things from the official guide about lesson from Mike. So first one, my take from Marshall Younger. The original name of A Lesson from Mike was The Insignificance of the Insignificant. That should say quilt.
That's an interesting title.
There's a quilt downstairs in the Focus on the Family Welcome Center that is made up of Odyssey fan letters. One is from a girl who was inspired by A Lesson from Mike. She walked up to a friendless girl and introduced herself, forming what became a lasting friendship. It's a very sweet letter. Whenever I need to remember my purpose in doing adventures in Odyssey, I walk down there and read it.
Aww.
Yeah. And the other one kind of ties back to this one, which is that the original name of this program was The Significance of the Insignificant, but it wouldn't fit on the cassette. So they changed it to A Lesson from Mike.
You said before The Insignificance of the Insignificant? And I was like, wow, that's kind of interesting title.
The Significance of the Insignificant wouldn't fit on the cassette. It's too much like a Fall Out Boy song, and so they had to change it to A Lesson from Mike.
Fall Out Boy is my favorite band, you jerk.
Well, but, long titles, and they won't fit on the things. I mean, that's their hallmark. Anyways, that's that for A Lesson from Mike. Final thoughts? It's my turn.
This episode is so beautifully written, and I personally think it is quite underrated, and that's why I chose it for Devin and I to review today, because I think everyone should listen to it because it is such a good episode. I would not change a piece of the dialogue in the episode because I think it's all so great. It touches on the subjects well. It gives you a lot of feels for what's going on. And Mike's mother is a wonderful, wonderful person, and I really, really love her. And yeah, I continue to like Julie. I don't really like Heather very much, but I've always liked Julie. So, what about you?
Yeah, like you said, this is a wonderful episode. I do feel that it is underrated as well. It seems like people don't talk about it very much compared to other episodes, which would normally fall in like the same ilk as that, like Karen or stuff like that. And, sorry. I understand why, to an extent. I mean, Karen is more directly sad because it deals more directly with, you connect with the character before they die, stuff like that. But
also, this episode, it was kind of during the not as good episode period.
Yeah, it does.
So this one is actually like the diamond in the rough. This is the really good one. It probably doesn't get as much recognition because it was surrounded by not very good episodes.
That is probably a strong reason. It falls in the early post-first hiatus area. It's a little bit before, the Y2K period, the spring 2000 disaster time, as some people call it. The split episodes, album 33, 34. It's a little bit...
YAK.
Yeah. It's a little bit before that. But still, it does fall in that general area, the same characters somewhat. There is actually a little bit of a character turnover between the very early post-first hiatus and the more like the Dark Ages split episode pre-Novacom area, which is interesting, but that's another talk for another time. Don't know exactly what kind of talk that'd be, but...
I don't think I actually gave a rating. I'm going to give it 5 out of 5 stars. It's really good.
Yeah. So yes, it is very good in that respect. I feel like what I said about... Oh, I'm sorry. The way that the kids react to Mike, apart from Julie, of course. Like I said, it's harsh, but it's realistic. Surprisingly so, which is, always a wonderful thing to have in the episode, a harsh realism to it and not just try and sugarcoat it in an attempt to divert from reality. I do feel like the fact that while I understand, I think it's clever the way that they averted Mike's death from being self-inflicted into being falling off the train trestle, and he was there because he was lonely and depressed. While I think it's clever, I do think that the episode would have had more impact if it was suicide, although, like I said, I don't know if they would have been allowed to do that for an 11-year-old kid. Overall, the episode was very good, moving, well written, as we see, Julie struggling between wanting to connect with someone who's gone and, whether or not that's a weird thing and the social implications of that. I like it. Very good. 5 out of 5. And that's that. So...
Can I just say YAK problem? Because we'll probably never review this episode.
No, because we're way over time.
Okay.
So, what do we do next time, Victoria?
Music?
Yes.
Okay. I always have to make sure. I don't want to say something wrong. Give you guys spoilers.
Yeah.
So we are going to be reviewing the OAC Season 1 soundtrack.
Yeah, we're doing a music review, because that's what we need on this show, is more new series to start.
This review is probably only going to be like 3 minutes long. So this short episode that is coming up will be a break from this very long one you're watching right now.
That's a good point. Hopefully. I mean, I will say, if it is longer than 20 minutes, I'll be extremely surprised.
It won't be.
So, until then, thank you for joining us on our side of the YouTube. This has been Devin Francis, also known as Leonard Melsner.
And I'm Victoria, also known as Echo.
And you've been watching The Adventures in Odyssey Oddcast. Goodbye.
Good night, Night Vale.